Kenya, Philippines Tzu Chi volunteers move out building materials from Leyte Progressive High School and survey damaged schools in Tacloban City. China Tzu Chi volunteers hold aid distribution in Fujian's Quanzhou, helping a total of 4,851 households. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Helen Liao. Thank you for joining us. On January 15th, the Leyte Progressive High School in Tacloban City will be back in session to make sure all the building materials left over from the construction of the prefabricated classroom can be moved out as soon as possible. On December 28th, a cash flow program was launched on campus. Meanwhile, to get a better understanding of the needs of 14 other schools, Tzu Chi volunteer Yang Guo-ying decided to visit all of them one by one. Reading out the names on the list, Joy Duenas, who is the head of Barangay 65 in Tacloban City, is recruiting participants for Tzu Chi's Cash for Work program.
The average wage around this area is only about $6 per day. That's why I love to work for the Tzu Chi Foundation.
Following Super Typhoon Haiyan, Tzu Chi initiated a cash for work program in this area. And with the help of Joy Duenas, the volunteers were able to recruit enough participants.
I am the barangay head, so I will find people to work for Tzu Chi's Cash for Work program if needed. All of them are very happy to be part of the program because they really need the money.
As the Leyte Progressive High School will be back in session on January 15th, Tzu Chi volunteers have to move out all the prefabricated classroom building materials as soon as possible.
This school will be back in session very soon, so we need to move out all the building materials as quickly as possible.
According to Tzu Chi volunteer Yang Guo-ying, there are approximately 14 schools in Tacloban City still in need of Tzu Chi's prefabricated classrooms. To better understand the needs of each school, Yang decided to visit all of them one by one.
Welcome.
This is a private Catholic school with about 60 students ranging from 5 to 10 years old. In the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan, this school was not only left with damaged classrooms but also roofless bathroom. Unfortunately, the local government has yet to provide the school with much assistance.
The purpose of a school is to give students a chance at education. This is a private school, so the help we will get from the government is limited. So far, our school hasn't received much help.
Upon receiving the news that the Tzu Chi Foundation is willing to help, the acting principal of the school quickly called the nearby landowner to ask for the extra land needed to build the prefabricated classrooms.
This Catholic school is made up of 4 classrooms we see here. All the classrooms were damaged by Super Typhoon Haiyan. As the school campus is not large, there was insufficient space at first to set up the prefabricated classrooms. Thankfully, the landowner agreed to lend this piece of land to the Buddhist NGO. And as soon as the owner's approval is once again confirmed, Tzu Chi volunteers will start building.
To prepare for Tzu Chi's aid distribution, mini voucher distribution took place this past weekend, and among the distribution area was 94A Barangay, where volunteers from Marikina City came forth to help the event proceed smoothly. For the disaster survivors, the aid has come in a most timely manner, as the #1 priority now for most is to rebuild their homes and move on with their lives.
It is very hot today in the Philippines, and we can see many residents are using umbrellas to keep out from under the sun as they wait to receive the relief distribution family cards. Let's listen to what the residents have to say. There are a total of 45 households in this village, and with 90% of the residents affected, that comes to nearly 1,400 residents. Local residents hang thank you Tzu Chi signs to express their gratitude. Meanwhile, also joining the event are volunteers from Marikina City who knows exactly how these survivors feel.
Although the environment here is difficult, it's hot and water is scarce, but I feel good to be able to help others.
At 96 years old, Asuncion Espinoza is the barangay's eldest resident, and living through Haiyan has been the most unforgettable moment of her life.
The typhoon blew down my house. Many plates and clothes were blown away as well.
In the aftermath, neighbors helped construct a temporary shelter for the senior, yet she is anxious to start rebuilding her own home after receiving Tzu Chi's financial aid.
Thank you.
For many residents, rebuilding has become a top priority, as construction can be seen all along the streets as neighbors help neighbors. The path to rebuilding is the beginning of a long road ahead.
In Tacloban of the Philippines, Tzu Chi volunteers continue their efforts to help Typhoon Haiyan survivors. On December 29, an aid distribution was held at the Bagacay Elementary School, where volunteers handed out consolation cash and blankets to aid recipients. Despite the heavy rains and long hours of waiting, recipients remained patient and the event ended on a perfect note.
在巴卡盖小学的这场发放是在
Here in Tacloban's Bagacay Elementary School, despite the rain, the aid distribution proceeded as scheduled to help Typhoon Haiyan survivors return their lives to normal.
75-year-old Pewuma Momo brings the Tzu Chi's relief distribution family card she received earlier to pick up consolation cash and other items.
Things are difficult now as many of us have lost our homes. We need to buy materials to rebuild them.
From my heart, I pray the typhoon caused the tragedy that we are now experiencing. Thus, I hope there will be no more disasters in the Philippines.
Learning that Tzu Chi is bringing relief items to help Tacloban residents, the mayor of the city shows up to give his thanks.
In many disasters and in many calamities, here in Tacloban City, we're quite fast in our recovery. So I'd like to thank the foundation that they have empowered the people, and the people now are very anxious in getting back to the way they were before, and even much better.
Receiving Tzu Chi's consolation cash, which is the equivalent of 1 month of wages, recipients say they will make good use of the subsidies.
I want to buy groceries and open a small business.
I want to rebuild my house. My house was completely ruined in the typhoon.
Several residents donated PET bottles and spare change to help those in greater need. And the crowds at the school show that the life is slowly returning to normal in the Philippines.
As the aid distribution continues, the non-stop rain turns the distribution site muddy. Despite the terrible weather, recipients still wait patiently for their turn to pick up their aid.
I was planning to find a stadium or a roofed basketball court to hold the aid distribution. However, I couldn't find one, as almost all the buildings have had their roofs blown away.
Thanks to the encouragement of the Tzu Chi volunteers, aid recipients find strength to get through the terrible weather.
Tacloban residents love to listen to stories. Since it is raining now, we should not hurry, but instead distribute relief items in an orderly manner. We should seize this opportunity to motivate the residents with Master Zheng Yan's stories.
Local volunteers from Marikina are also here to help collect residents' donations.
I am very happy. Although it is raining now, I am still able to do volunteer work. I am doing this to help my fellow people. Their donations can help more people in need.
You don't care about the rain?
Yeah, we don't care. I'm very wet, but no matter how, there's more blessings from Tzu Chi.
Though it is very cold, we are still joyous. Thank you, Tzu Chi.
With Tzu Chi's blankets and consolation cash in hand, the disaster survivors return home with smiles.
In helping Typhoon Haiyan survivors get back on their feet, the Philippines Tzu Chi chapter is carrying out the second part of its disaster relief in the form of aid distributions. This past weekend in the Tacloban area, including Sakahan and northern Tacloban, 6 aid distributions were held and 10,000 residents received assistance. To ensure the aid distribution ran smoothly for 2 consecutive days, Tzu Chi volunteers worked tirelessly to hand out vouchers to needy residents.
Here at the Northern Tacloban Relief Card Distribution venue, the director of the Philippines Tzu Chi chapter shares some words of wisdom with local residents who are waiting for registration.
Confucius said, Do not do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you.
Chatting with local residents, Li Wei-song is deeply moved and feels the most significant change has been the spread of compassion in local residents.
They are lined up in an orderly manner. You can see these people know Tzu Chi. They know that we are here to help them. They have also brought their hearts of gratitude.
Volunteers spent 2 days visiting barangays to hand out distribution cards in preparation for the actual aid distribution and have received much thanks from survivors in that time.
In the beginning, I joined the Cash for Work program. Then on the second day, I asked a few teachers to do volunteer work, and there were over 200 people helping to clean up our school.
Finally, on December 28th, Tzu Chi volunteers successfully distributed relief cards to 14 barangays in northern Tacloban.
We are doing a voucher distribution in 14 barangays, and I'm grateful for the Tzu Chi brothers and sisters that flew in from Manila to help us. Volunteers from other areas came as well to assist in completing this task before dark.
However, distributions in other areas were not as smooth going. On Sunday, despite the rain, in Sakahan 74 and 76 barangay, relief cards are still being given out. Residents are not deterred by the weather, and some even brought plastic bottles filled with coins to reciprocate.
The Tzu Chi sister said we should save some money to help others. It's not much, but every little bit helps.
Grateful for the financial assistance, 23-year-old Mary Rose Pasaan says she can now rise from the fall and has much confidence for the days ahead.
I'm delighted to be able to start rebuilding my home. Our ability to stand up again is because you have given us much assistance and hope.
On this day, volunteers are doing a relief card distribution in the morning and aid distribution in the afternoon, because previously relief cards did not find their way into the hands of all those that needed it.
It is for their peace of mind to give them hope. If we do not complete our task, we will come back to finish it.
The rain coming down cannot douse the fire in the volunteers' hearts as they work to help high-end survivors.
Also in the Philippines, Tzu Chi volunteers traveled to northern Tacloban City to hand out vouchers for an upcoming aid distribution to more than 1,000 households to express their gratitude for the Buddhist NGO's help. Other than writing words of gratitude on posters, many also donated their filled coin banks to continue the cycle of love. In the Philippines' northern Tacloban City, Tzu Chi volunteers are handing out vouchers for their upcoming relief distribution. While waiting for her turn to receive Tzu Chi's voucher, one woman holds up a poster on which are written with words of gratitude.
Most of our family were joined the Cash for Work. So the cash, the amount we gathered, we bought materials to rebuild the house. And then right now, even though it rains, it eventually rains every now and then, it's okay because the house is already good for everyone to stay in.
Other than picking up their vouchers for the upcoming aid distribution, many local residents also donate their filled plastic coin banks to reciprocate Tzu Chi's kindness and help those in greater need.
We are very thankful to your foundation for your generosity. We are very, very much thankful for your generosity. That's all I can say. I will cry now.
Thank you. 29 po. Sa Makalawa pa po. Alas 7 po ng umaga sa Bagacay Elementary School po.
Bagacay.
Apo, Bagacay po. Salamat. Maraming salamat po.
To make sure senior residents remember the place and time of the upcoming aid distribution, Tzu Chi volunteers thoughtfully go over the information with each one. Thanks to efforts of these volunteers, the voucher distribution for Barangay 94 in northern Tacloban City ended on a perfect note. Lost and abandoned fishing nets kill untold numbers of sea creatures around the world every year, but there's a growing global movement to remove what are known as ghost nets in the world's oceans. And in Taiwan, groups of highly skilled volunteer divers scour our waters to remove old fishing nets that can harm sea life. Just how detrimental are these ghost nets? Let's take a look in our next report.
Amid the cold, a group of highly skilled volunteer divers are ready to take a dive into the waters along Taiwan's northeast coast as part of their weekly coastal cleanup.
我们就是说会往前走，往那个大约210度的方向哈。大约看到那个就是有一个那个消波块，有一个独立的消波块的时候，才切上来。
An hour later, the divers come ashore carrying 3 mesh bags. Inside are fishing nets, 15 meter times 4 meters in size.
螃蟹叫什么？叫螃蟹。
螃蟹。
有螃蟹被那个网子缠到。
These abandoned fishing nets are known as ghost nets. Even highly skilled divers sometimes get entangled in them. And for countless sea creatures, their lives end in these nets.
这附近其实哈，在这个，因为它有一个那个消波块。
There is a tetrapod nearby, and the coral reefs growing in the area are very beautiful. However, a lot of litter and waste was also caught in the abandoned fishing nets, making it impossible for the coral reefs to maintain adequate levels of photosynthesis, which means that they would eventually die.
台湾哈近海这一类型的小网很多。 然后这个大部分是因为它的那个
Such types of small fishing nets can be found everywhere in Taiwan's surrounding waters. Many sea organisms like fish or crabs easily get entangled in these abandoned nets and eventually die. It's quite sad.
那这那个生物来说的话，其实也蛮可怜的。
And these divers cannot bear to see countless sea creatures fall victim to these nets.
一般渔民他们可能为了看着方便。
Some fishermen, for the sake of efficiency, just throw their nets overboard. So in fact, the re-education of fishermen is very important. It will benefit them in the long run in sustaining the fishing industry. The other is to put in place a recycling mechanism where abandoned nets are collected and recycled.
要把这个废弃的渔网有没有丢到海里面去的，他们愿意再到岸边去回收。
Information provided between 2005 and 2011 show that more than 70% of Taiwan's marine debris are generated from coastal recreation and everyday life. The most commonly seen plastic bottles take 50 years just to break down. Fishing nets take 80 years, PET bottles 450 years, and nylon fishing lines take as long as 650 years to fully break down. If we don't take action now to remove the debris, storms will only wash more debris into our oceans.
除了这渔网以后像有那种垃圾袋，那种塑胶袋。
Apart from fishing nets, we also found disposal bags and plastic bags. Sometimes we also find hemp ropes and boat spears, among other things. We have found many things here before.
还有一些那个废弃物，我们其实在这边捡过的东西很多。
Cherishing our world's resources is one of the best ways to reduce the burden on our planet. Putting their gear back on, these diving volunteers once again head back into the waters to safeguard our oceans.
On the second day of distributions in China's Fujian province, Tzu Chi volunteers handed out relief items to 8,947 residents from 4,851 households in 8 separate locations in Quanzhou. Many volunteers were participating for the second time, including an owner of a hair salon who arrived with his staff to provide free haircuts.
Here at the second day of distributions in Quanzhou, Fujian, besides Tzu Chi volunteers, the owner of a local hair salon is here with his staff to provide free haircuts.
I am very happy to volunteer. This is better than work.
Though without the right equipment, volunteers do what they can to give this visually impaired grandpa a fresh look.
We met Tzu Chi last year, and my boss told us how wonderful it is to do charity work.
Knowing that Tzu Chi is here to hold a winter aid distribution, local residents arrive early in the morning despite the cold weather. Among them is Liya, who has been receiving Tzu Chi scholarship support for the last few years, and today wants to pay that love forward.
加入了你们的行列。
I am here to join you in helping care for those in need. I know I shoulder great responsibility, so I am working hard.
Together singing one of Tzu Chi's signature songs, One Family, Tzu Chi volunteers and local residents become as close as family.
As winter arrives, Tzu Chi volunteers are here in Fujian to bring love and care to you all.
Respectfully reading a letter from Master Zheng Yan, volunteers hand out relief items as part of their mission to bring warmth to every corner of society.
Beginning in 1998, Tzu Chi started a program in China's Gansu province to help alleviate the hardships of local residents and also relocated to villages in the succeeding years. This year, like all previous years, Tzu Chi volunteers arrived in Gansu to carry out winter aid distributions with the distribution at Wuhe Township.
Despite the temperature being at 18 degrees below zero, Tzu Chi volunteers are braving the cold to carry out their second day of aid distribution in Gansu's Wuhe Township. Among the residents, Wang Dinglian is here on his trishaw.
Take this piece of paper with you and go to the next stop, all right? Take it slow.
55-year-old Wang is all smiles regardless of his immobility and returns home with the company of Tzu Chi volunteers. Wang's wife had left him after he became paralyzed from tuberculosis encephalitis 2 decades ago, and he has since raised his 5 children on his own.
Throughout the years when my children were still little, I learned sewing and knitting. Anything that a woman can do, I know how to do it as well.
Thankfully, the darkest days are over, and today, 4 of his children have married, and Wang even has a grandchildren as well.
My daughter-in-law is a kind-hearted person. She doesn't look down on others. I often say there are many daughter-in-laws who are willing to provide but not willing to do chores. I'm truly grateful for my daughter-in-law.
There are many impoverished families in Gansu like Wang's family. Thus, beginning in 1998, Tzu Chi has not only held winter aid distributions every year, but also built water cellars and carried out village relocation programs, drawing the attention of the local media.
From your attitude to the aid supplies you hand out, you are truly carrying out charity work here, particularly with the 2 villages you built. All our residents can see how Tzu Chi is persistent in its construction work, and they are deeply moved.
Though their lives ahead may seem difficult, Wang Dinglian remains positive and thankful of all the help he has received.
Words cannot express how I feel, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you all so much.
We go back to Taiwan at the end of the show. At the year-end blessing ceremony held at the Jingsi Hall in Hsinchu, a kitchen volunteer accidentally cut herself while cooking for the participants. Thankfully, a team of doctors was on site and helped her bind up the injury. We will leave you with these images. Thank you for watching DaAi Headlines. Goodbye.